The day I got a second shot at life, while my sis Vanessa and I were picking out our future husbands, I suddenly realized I could hear everyone's thoughts. I caught Vanessa mulling over. This time, I seriously need to lock down a solid husband early. Without missing a beat, she swiftly pulled away the sweet guy I had married in my past life, leaving me stuck with the abusive dude who used to hit her every single day. I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly, thinking, does she really believe the guy I married was that awesome before? Suddenly, I was back on the same day, once again choosing husbands with Vanessa. Sitting across the table were two guys our age. One was Kyle, who naturally had a cool and distant vibe. The other was Greg, a guy from a rough background but with a gentle nature. This time, I absolutely need to snag a good husband. Vanessa's voice echoed in my ears. I glanced at her, but she wasn't saying anything out loud. Her eyes were glued to Greg. I'm definitely taking you, she was thinking. That's when it hit me. Not only had I been reborn, but I could also hear what others were thinking. From what I could gather, my sister had also been given a second chance. Before I could wrap my head around it, Vanessa leaned over to sit next to Greg, looking all shy and stuff. Hey, I'm Vanessa, and I like you. Suddenly, Dad, Leo chimed in. Emily, since your sister picked Greg, you'll be with Kyle. Vanessa's eyes sparkled with satisfaction. In her mind, she was thinking, this time you take the hits for me. In our last life, my sister married Kyle. Kyle was a powerhouse in business, always busy and pretty cold. I heard he was tough to handle. Vanessa kept reaching out to Kyle, but she kept getting beaten and thrown out. Eventually, because she couldn't have kids, Kyle's grandma, Kate, sent her packing, thinking she had health issues. I ended up with Greg, who wasn't as powerful but provided enough for me. He was always there, shopping, dining, dating, and spoiling me endlessly. Everyone saw we had a strong connection. When Kyle mysteriously died from poisoning, Greg inherited the family business and my status soared. Vanessa got jealous and eventually pushed both of us to our demise out of envy. All right, Dad, I actually like Kyle too, I said with a grin, sitting beside Kyle. Even though Kyle looked intimidating, I felt safer with him than with Greg, who I now saw as a snake. I vowed to change my originally tragic fate. I was going to become rich and independent, not relying on anyone. Vanessa and I had a joint wedding. Just like before, Kyle hadn't shown up to the wedding back then either. Greg was the first to arrive, making everyone think he was the more attentive husband. As usual, Greg picked up my sister early this time too. As they walked by, Vanessa shot me a smug look. Sis, where's Kyle to pick you up? I just smiled and said, no worries, you just handle yourself. Annoyed by my response, she thought, laugh it up, let's see if you're still so smug after getting beaten, and walked away with Greg. But it was too soon to tell who'd have the last laugh since Kyle missed the wedding. Vanessa and I faced the same gossip and stares from our previous life. Thrilled, Vanessa couldn't wait to show her love for Greg. She kissed him right there, eyes fixed on me, trying to see if I'd freak out. But I'm no fool. I wasn't going to repeat her past mistakes by storming out and becoming a joke. Back then, people said Vanessa was too immature to be with the eldest son Kyle, leading to a marriage no one respected and tons of struggles for her. I grabbed the mic with a smile, addressing everyone. Kyle's got an important business deal today, so I'll stand in for him during the toast. Hope that's cool with everyone. The murmurs died down. Kate at the main table respected my composure. The Smith family valued appearances the most, and it was crucial to stay cool and act like a proper hostess. Vanessa noticed Kate's approving gaze and felt a surge of anger. Gross, I'll embarrass you during tea, she thought. Honestly, being able to hear thoughts is a blessing. It's like having a superpower, making everything easier. When it was time for toasts, I confidently walked up to Kate with a dress in hand. Vanessa was counting, dashing 1, 2, 3 inches in her head, but at the last second, I dodged sideways to grab some tea, and she tripped, spilling tea all over herself. You okay? Greg rushed to help but thought inwardly, what a dummy. People turned to watch. Kate looked furious. Such clumsiness. She scolded, sorry, Mom, it was an accident. Vanessa apologized with resentment in her eyes. If I were Vanessa, I'd stop causing trouble and just live quietly. Since she doesn't want me to have peace, I won't back down either. Vanessa's embarrassment cut the wedding short. Kate gave her the cold shoulder while showing approval towards me instead. She even held my hand, promising, "Emily, I'll make sure Kyle comes back to make it up to you tonight." Sure enough, Kyle came back later, looking exhausted as he undid his tie while entering. I rushed to help him with his clothes. "Kyle, today must have been rough." He glanced at me, but didn't reply. Last time around, the staff mentioned Kyle didn't return on their wedding night, leaving Vanessa to face ridicule alone. When she confronted Kyle, he accused her of not being able to win a man's heart herself. While Kyle showered, I set up the bed and brewed him some tea. Meanwhile, I settled on the sofa, planning to sleep there alone. Emerging from the shower, Kyle looked vaguely surprised. I quickly said, "You take the bed, I'll take the couch." "Emily, are you playing hard to get?" He squinted at me, wearing a robe that revealed a bit of his chest. Droplets of water clung to his skin. I had to admit, he had a great body. I quickly looked away. "No, there's nothing between us. Sleeping in the same bed would be awkward for both of us. If possible, I'd like to make a deal with you." "What do you mean?" he asked. "Since ours is a business marriage, many couples like us live separate lives while pretending for appearances. I married you just to have a secure life, not for love." Kyle gave a sly smile at my words. "You're smart. That's exactly what I want." "I can agree to that. I'm just an ordinary person, not skilled enough to hold on to a man's heart. In the Smiths, Kyle's attitude towards me depends on Kate's attitude towards me. I don't want to end up like Vanessa in my last life, where everyone was against me. That wouldn't benefit me at all. Plus, in my previous life, Kyle even abused my sister. I don't want to provoke him and get hit too. So I'll just get along with him peacefully. This time around, I just want to earn money, start my own business, and succeed on my own." I had Kyle post a picture of us holding hands on Twitter with the caption, "Happy Wedding," to make everyone think we're a good match. I noticed his Twitter was pretty clean. No other posts except that one. He must lead a boring life. At bedtime, he really did take the bed, leaving me with the couch. Doesn't understand tenderness at all, I thought. Oh well, I should be content. And oh, the next morning, I was awakened by Kyle doing push-ups and listening to music early. I've heard men who aren't into women are usually pretty scrawny, but Kyle had an 8-pack, strong legs, and looked powerful, way better built than Greg. "Stop looking. I'm not interested in you," he suddenly said, getting off the floor. "Get dressed, let's go for breakfast." The implication was clear. This would help people see we're a solid couple. Honestly, I think he's pretty easygoing. Why did he hit Vanessa in the last life? After getting ready, I went out with Kyle. Just as we left, I saw Vanessa and Greg walking towards us, fingers entwined. Vanessa wore a strapless dress, showing off kiss marks on her shoulders, flaunting them at me. She eyed me with pride, scrutinizing me from head to toe, wrapped up so tightly, probably covering up bruises. Vanessa thought and smiled smugly. "How was your wedding night, Emily? Today I wore a proper long-sleeve cheapao." Vanessa seemed to forget that Kate doesn't like revealing outfits at home and heavy makeup isn't allowed, but I wasn't about to remind her. I just smiled. "Vanessa, in the Smith family, you should call me sister-in-law, not sister." Her face turned sour, biting her lips defiantly. "Kyle never asked me to call you that. Who are you to tell me?" She then looked at Kyle. "Kyle, say something." I sensed Kyle's demeanor getting colder. Greg silently cursed in his mind. "Dumbass, watch me handle you tonight." Then he tugged Vanessa's hand, signaling her to be quiet. But Vanessa was oblivious to the seriousness. "Greg, what's the first rule of the household?" Kyle spoke gently. Greg quickly lowered his head. "Sorry, brother, I'll handle Vanessa right away." In the next moment, there was a loud slap as Greg hit Vanessa on the face. "Quick, greet your brother and sister-in-law." My face turned red from the hit, anger boiling over. But Vanessa knew Kyle wasn't one to mess with, so she reluctantly said, "Good morning, brother and sister-in-law." Then Greg dragged Vanessa away. I remembered the first rule in the Smiths is, no one shall disrespect the heir and his wife. No calling them by their first names. Violators will be severely punished. Kyle is the heir. In my previous life, to survive, I memorized the rules. When Vanessa married Kyle, she bullied me, but I remembered the rules and dared not disrespect her. I thought Vanessa knew them. Turns out she didn't. She assumed she could bully me in this life too. At the dining hall, Vanessa had already received her punishment. Her face was pale, and she kept her head down, not daring to act up. I noticed Greg poking her hand under the table with a needle. Bitch, because of you, I'm getting scolded? Greg cursed internally, pressing harder. In my previous life, not long after I married Greg, he started abusing me, not letting me speak out. I couldn't escape, suffered a lot, so I'd rather be with Kyle than Greg. Vanessa, you chose your husband in this life. Don't blame me. Kate arrived, and we all stood to greet her. She leaned on a cane, eyes landing on Vanessa. Vanessa hadn't changed clothes, still wearing the same strapless dress. Noticing the old lady's gaze, Vanessa forced a smile, looking embarrassed. Mom, Greg wants me to have a child. As she spoke, Kate suddenly erupted in anger, hitting her back with the cane. Shameless. What you do with your husband is your business. Don't talk about it outside and dress like this. You disgrace us. In the last life, a servant got fired by Kate for wearing shorts. Since then, I was very careful. It's the only way I barely survived. Vanessa thought my good life was because of the man I married. But her thinking was flawed. Why depend on someone for a good life? Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Vanessa, battered and sweating from the pain, Gary hurried to explain, Mom, it's my fault, I forgot to remind her. Greg said this outwardly, but inside he enjoyed it. Serves her right. Getting hit makes me happy. He's really twisted. Since Vanessa just got married, Kate didn't say more, letting everyone eat. Kyle barely spoke throughout, even served me food. I sensed Vanessa's angry eyes wanting to tear me apart. I smiled even wider. Thank you, hubby. Kate smiled approvingly at me. Emily, after breakfast, go to the company with Kyle to learn. As Kyle's wife, you need to know about the business. I expected Kate to say that. In the last life, she said this to Vanessa at breakfast too, but Vanessa refused. I don't want to learn. I'll just rely on Kyle forever. She pushed away such a good opportunity until she was kicked out without a penny. Okay, Mom, I replied to Kate. Kyle drove me to the office. In the car, I kept trying to read his mind, but I got nothing. Not surprising, though. A man like him isn't easily bothered or distracted. Once we got to the company, Kyle took me to his office. Wait here, he said, tossing the words over his shoulder as he left. Watching through the glass door, I saw him rush to the meeting room. Curious, I followed. Kyle was in a meeting with a British guy named Jake. They were negotiating a deal to sell the formula Jake developed to Kyle. Good thing I did my homework before coming here. The Smiths are loaded, but this formula is only worth a few $100. I'm going to make them pay through the nose. I could hear Jake's thoughts. Surprised, I looked his way. His face was calm, giving no hint of his scheming mind. Jake asked for $3 million. Kyle hesitated, not replying right away. Jake seized the moment, saying, Kyle, my product will bring you well over $3 million in value. Just as Kyle was about to say yes, I barged in. I greeted Jake in English and picked up his skincare serum. I'm a woman, so I get skincare. Your product only has whitening ingredients, no anti-aging benefits at all. Being an engineer, you know as well as I do that whitening is just marketing hype. The effect is negligible. So tell me, why is your formula worth $3 million? Jake was stunned, frozen on the spot. Kyle watched me with interest, not interrupting. I knew he was letting me speak. Emboldened, I added, though it's a foreign product, with your social media promotion, people know and trust it. So I can offer you this. I signaled with a single finger. $1 million? Jake questioned, shocked. Jake, $1 million is generous. Think it over, Kyle said, locking eyes with him. No, I interrupted. I'm offering you $10,000. For something only worth a few hundred, $10,000 is my limit. Jake stood up, startled. In broken Chinese, he said, Miss, who are you to make such an offer? How could I do business like this? Maybe I just won't sell then. I don't have to. He turned to leave. Jake, I'll give you $1 million. Sign the contract, and I need you to apologize to my wife, Kyle said. Upon hearing this, Jake spun around, delighted. I didn't get why Kyle did that, so I hurried to stop him, but he signaled me to stay silent, and I did. Kyle, you're a real businessman, Jake chuckled. then turned to me, saying, "Sorry, I didn't know you were Kyle's wife." Kyle then took Jake to sign the contract. I couldn't understand that the formula's only worth a couple $100. Why offer $1 million? I asked Kyle. He poured himself a coffee, replying coolly, "You have good business sense, but you don't understand the market. I knew Jake's formula was worthless. I was interested in the brand he created. The brand might not be well known yet, but young women already recognize it. With a little extra promotion, I'll make that million back." Suddenly, it all clicked. No wonder Jake was so confident. Coming here was worth it. I've learned a lot, but how do you know it's only worth a few hundred? Kyle asked, looking right at me. I gave a sheepish grin. Just a guess. He didn't press further, so I seized the chance to ask him for control over a branch. In my last life, Greg had no standing in the Smith family, could give me nothing. I desperately wanted to run my business and be my own boss. That way, I wouldn't need anyone. And once I made enough money, I could leave. You have big ambitions. You aren't planning to grab the company, make money, and run, are you? Kyle looked at me like he was seeing right through me. Oh my God. He seemed better at reading people than me. For the first time, I felt inferior. I could hear people's thoughts, yet he outdid me. Must be a talent thing. Of course not. I just want something to do, I said. He took a sip of his coffee. All right, but you have to learn from me before you can go. Over the next few days, I followed Kyle and learned a lot about business etiquette and skills at the company. One day, he surprised me by taking me out for dinner at the fanciest restaurant. I didn't expect to run into Vanessa and Greg there. Vanessa was cutting her steak but dropped her knife and fork when she saw us. Her eyes were wide. "Emily, you're here too," she said, quickly correcting herself. "Brother, sister-in-law, you're here for dinner too?" The next moment, I heard her thoughts. "Just my luck running into her now. Must keep it together." "Yeah, Kyle, and I came for dinner," I said, linking arms with Kyle. He didn't pull away. Greg hurried over to greet us. "Brother, sister-in-law," he said. Kyle ignored them and took me to our table. I saw my sister gritting her teeth, probably wondering why Kyle didn't hit me and even brought me to dinner. In the bathroom, she was waiting for me, her glare fierce, just like when she rammed her car into mine in the past life. "Ken must be hitting you every day behind closed doors," she sneered. "Pretending to be fine makes me sick," I chuckled, pretending to notice the needle marks on her arm. "Oh dear, Vanessa, what happened? So many needle marks." Her eyes flashed with panic. Covering her arm quickly, she spat. "None of your business. Just a little fun between me and Greg. You wouldn't know, would you? Kyle hasn't touched you, has he? Unlike Greg, who keeps me busy all night." Vanessa had it rough but kept up the front, curious how long she could keep pretending. "That's great. Hope you and Greg stay happy," I said, ready to leave. But the next second, she grabbed my hair. "You mocking me, you bitch?" I frowned. She was just as crazy as ever. I struggled free just as Kyle stepped in, kicking her aside. "You know the punishment for disrespecting your sister-in-law?" he asked, pulling me close. I remembered all too well. "That's being locked up in the dungeon. My sister had me tossed in there once. It was crawling with rats, roaches, and snakes. She knew exactly what was coming her way." My sister turned pale with fright. "Kyle, I didn't mean it." "Don't treat me like this," she said. But Kyle wasn't going to soften up. Once he decided on something, he never changed his mind. He had Greg take Vanessa away. Greg cursed quietly to himself, thinking, "Hope she rots in there. She's always causing trouble." Kyle brought me back to the bedroom and checked my head. "You all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine." "She just tugged my hair a bit," I replied. I pushed him away and straightened my clothes and hair. "But why did you suddenly come to the bathroom?" I asked, meeting Kyle's dark eyes. "I noticed you hadn't come back for a while. I also wanted to ask why you and Vanessa had a fight again," he said. I thought about it, knowing I couldn't tell him Vanessa was reborn and deliberately picking on me. So I said, "My sister was bragging about her and Greg's great sex life, unlike you who never touch me," which ticked me off. Kyle's eyes sparkled for a moment. "So you're hinting at something?" he asked, realizing he misunderstood. I quickly shook my head. No, that's not what I meant. I was just explaining the fight." "Emily, have you ever thought about doing that kind of thing with me?" Kyle asked, staring at me intensely. "Of course not. I answered quickly. I told you I just want to live comfortably, relying on you. Is that all? I nodded firmly. He didn't say more, just suddenly slammed the door and left. I didn't know what I said to upset him, nor did I want to. I just wanted to focus on achieving what I wanted. The next day, Kyle didn't take me to the office. He asked me to go to the branch myself. I started focusing on running the branch company. My plan was to make $1 million and then step back. I hustled every day, working on projects and negotiating deals, bringing in lots of profit. Kyle's mom even told me to take my share. While I was busy raking in the cash, Vanessa got out of the dungeon. Coincidentally, I came home from work that day. She had lost a lot of weight but still wore makeup and dressed up beautifully. Holding Greg close, she walked toward me. Emily, I've applied to Mom to learn about company operations from you to help ease your burden, she said. Inside, Greg thought, soon I'll have you and Kyle dead. I suddenly recalled in the past life. Kyle died suddenly. It was Greg's doing, I realized. And now he wants to kill both Kyle and me. I tried hard to keep my emotions in check and looked at Vanessa. All right, come tomorrow, I said deliberately, wanting to know what she was plotting. In the next second, I heard Vanessa's thoughts. Stupid girl, just wait. Soon I'll kill all of you and live my life as I wish. She must have cleared her head during those days in the dungeon. But little did she know I could hear people's thoughts. How could she possibly harm me? In the last life, Kyle died from poisoning. I suddenly remembered seeing a cabinet full of colorful vials in Greg's basement. He often used them to experiment on me. Sometimes I'd black out. Other times get hyperactive. In hindsight, those were the ingredients for poison. I led Vanessa to the company, starting her as an intern. She's gotten better at controlling her emotions now. She agreed to whatever I said, doing as I asked. I knew why she was cooking up a murder plan. Greg wanted Kyle and me dead, and she wanted all three of us gone. Kyle, me, and Greg. But her plan to kill Greg worked to my advantage, so I took action. I met up with Greg, away from Kyle. I know Greg well. He likes obedient women, which is how I stayed close to him for so long before. I deliberately dressed revealingly and looked at him. Greg, I like you. He perked up instantly. Emily, aren't you scared Kyle will kill you? I've always wanted to be with you, I said, biting my lip and pretending to be shy. And there's something else. Vanessa plans to poison you? I overheard her talking to a man yesterday at the company. Greg's face turned red with anger. Are you serious? He asked. Absolutely. She said you keep hitting her, so she wants you dead. She said she wants to rise to power, I said. Luckily, I kept my memories from before, allowing me to play them easily. Greg believed me entirely. Aside from him and my sister, no one knew about his twisted side. I'll teach that woman a lesson, Greg said. Just wait. Once Kyle and her are dead, you'll be my wife, and I'll take care of you, he added before leaving. Ha, does he think I'm dumb? I would never end up with him. Immediately, I went to find Kyle. Though his life or death doesn't concern me much, in this life, he helped me earn money and patiently shared his workplace wisdom. In his office, he was surprised by what I said. Do you have proof Greg wants to harm me? He asked. I pulled out a voice recorder and played the conversation I had with Greg. The first part was me intentionally seducing Greg, which made me cringe. I quickly explained I was just acting to earn his trust. Kyle didn't respond, but his expression darkened. I shut my mouth awkwardly. The next second, Kyle pulled me into his arms. His pinewood scent enveloped me as I heard his pounding heartbeat. I was completely flustered. He stared deeply at me. Emily, I advise you not to even think about betraying me. As long as you're my wife, you should be loyal to me, he said. Silly guy, that's not the point. Never mind that for now. Your brother's planning to harm you. What are your thoughts? We'll see if he's up to it. If he fails, he dies. Kyle seemed unconcerned about it and even took me to a party that evening. It would benefit the branch's growth, letting me meet many clients. Following him inside, I felt many glances sizing me up, all with ill intentions. Men are no good. Shouldn't have brought her along. Kyle's thoughts popped up. I was shocked, looking at his calm face, surprised by his inner dialogue. And what did he mean by that? Kyle sensed my stare and looked down at me. What's up? His mind whispered. So clueless? I was even more stunned. The cold, aloof CEO I knew could say such things. I tried my best to control my emotions, shaking my head, saying it was nothing. After the party, Kyle drove me home. Greg and Lily waited in the living room. Vanessa invited us for dinner. Greg eyed my chest and with a smile said, "Bro, Vanessa and I got some delicious food today. Join us." His intentions couldn't be more obvious. I really wondered how Kyle got poisoned by such a lame trick in the last life. Looking at the table full of delicious food, I was too scared to eat. I grabbed Kyle's hand under the table to signal him not to eat either. But the next second, he picked up some food and ate it so fast I couldn't even react. And then he said, "It tastes good. Let's all eat together." As soon as he said that, a hint of joy flashed in Vanessa and Greg's eyes. I anxiously pinched Kyle's hand, but he didn't move at all. I had clearly warned him about the danger, so why did he still eat? The moment this thought hit, Kyle and Vanessa collapsed onto the table. Then Kate appeared, furious. "Guards, take these two beasts to the dungeon and never let them out." "Emily, I'm not as dumb as you think." Kyle turned his head towards me. I had already told Mom to fill our house with cameras. When we caught Greg putting poison in the drinks, we switched theirs with a sedative. Then he lowered his voice. "But it seems like you're really afraid of me dying. Could it be that you've fallen for me?" For some reason, when he said that, my heart raced. "No, I'm just scared that if you die, I won't have anyone to rely on." Kyle broke into a bright smile. "Is that so?" With Vanessa and Greg locked up, I finally felt relieved. These two people I feared most were now dealt with. I'd also made enough money, so my next step was to ask Kyle for a divorce. I kept looking for the right moment, but Kyle had been so busy and was rarely around. I had to wait for the right time. One day, the servants mentioned that Greg and Vanessa constantly asked to see me. I went to Vanessa first. Her hair was a mess, she looked worn, and her eyes were full of resentment. "How could you know I planned to kill you? How'd you find out?" The next second, she seemed to realize. "I get it now. You've come back too." I looked at her with a smile. "Vanessa, did it just hit you now?" Hearing this, she angrily rushed to the bars, wanting to tear me apart. "You wench, you hit it well, huh? You always knew Greg was a psycho, right? So you just watched me jump into the deep end." "Emily, how could you be so evil?" "It's not me who's evil. It's you." I stared into her face that looked a bit like mine. She was my older sister, yet in my last life, she killed me with her own hands. If not for me being able to hear thoughts this time around, I'd probably be dead by now. "You chose Greg, just like you chose Kyle, with your own hands. None of your choices pleased you, so you blamed me and never once considered your faults. You wanted to rely on men, while I only wanted to rely on myself. That's the difference. But why do things always work out for you?" Vanessa roared. "Though you see me doing well, behind all that, I've been working hard to save myself. This is what I deserve. While you, putting in no effort, always want someone else to save you. That's why you ended up this way." With that, I turned and left. Behind me, Vanessa yelled in frustration. "You just wait. Next time, I won't lose to you." In Greg's cell, he was busy folding his blanket, still obsessed like he always was. Seeing me, he let out a chuckle. "Emily, you're smart, good at hiding yourself. You know, I actually believed you were going to follow me. I was ready to kill Vanessa and Kyle, but you gave me such a big surprise. You deserve it for being so evil." I snapped. His face started overlapping with the one that tortured me in my last life. It made my anger flare up even more. Walking step by step, he looked me over from head to toe. "If I wasn't locked up, I'd pin you down and inject you with something that'd make you feel euphoric." I couldn't listen to another word. "Greg, you're definitely going to hell." With that, I ran out. Even outside, I was breathing heavily. I couldn't shake off Greg's creepy look. Luckily, I finally broke free from him in this life. That night, Kyle came back drunk. As soon as he walked in, he stumbled onto me, and we both fell to the ground. "You're drunk. I'll make you some hangover soup." I tried to push him off, but he didn't budge. His hands kept fiddling with his clothes, eyes full of desire, fixed on me. It hit me then, he wasn't drunk. "Kyle, think about what you're doing. We're just partners. You can't touch me. He covered my mouth and whispered, "No matter what, you're still my wife. I want to touch you." I pushed him away. "No way. I've decided. I'm divorcing you, so you can't touch me." After those words, the room went silent. Kyle's face turned cold. "I knew you'd leave me." As he said it, he let go, looking a bit crestfallen. "Emily, you're such a bad woman. Have you already forgotten me?" "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "Do you remember little Kyle?" His question stirred memories of my childhood back in elementary school. There was a long-haired boy at school who always wore a face mask. Everyone mocked him, calling him a sissy, but I stepped up for him and took him to the hills behind the school. "You can't be so timid. You've got to protect yourself." He slowly raised his head, removing the mask. "Thanks, I just wanted to grow my hair long to donate to my aunt who has cancer." That's when I saw his face and realized how handsome he was. I fell for him at first sight and followed him around every day to protect him. He told me his name was Little Kyle. Soon after, his aunt passed, and he moved away. "I've been looking for you all these years, Emily. Then, when I could hear your thoughts, I realized you were the one." "That's because I can only hear your thoughts. I didn't reveal myself because I wanted you to remember me and come to me first. I wanted to see if you remembered me," he continued, his eyes turning red. "Until one day, I heard your thoughts saying you'd leave once you saved up $1 million. I avoided you because I didn't want you to leave. I never thought there'd be such a coincidence. He could hear people's thoughts too, and I found out you could hear mine, so I purposely thought those things to confirm." I looked at him guilty. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use you. I just feared being abandoned, so I wanted to save money and leave." "Do you still want to leave now?" I shook my head. "Before, I wanted to leave because I thought he didn't love me, and I believed I wouldn't be happy with him, so I'd rather rely on myself. But now that I know he's Kyle and he's been waiting for me, I couldn't leave." I suddenly realized why he was so resistant to Vanessa in the last life. He knew it wasn't me, so he refused to touch her. In that moment, I felt his warm lips on my face. He whispered, "Emily, stay with me forever." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Okay, let's be together forever." Thankfully, destiny gave me another chance at life, so I wouldn't miss my love.